Hello, good morning. Welcome to Joy News Desk. We're coming to you live from our studios in Kokom, namely on Fanofa Street. We are on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125. Coming up this morning, Justice Administration across the country grinds to a halt as Judicial Staff Association kickstarts an industrial action to pay demand for pay rise, among other benefits. More as the Chief Justice retires. Also this morning, as we observe AU Day today, we ask what has the AU achieved over the period for the sub-region. This morning, there's a conversation on how the union has fared, particularly in terms of peace and security in the sub-region. We'll also take you to the Upper West region and tell you the sad story of 5-month-old baby Kelvin, who was battling for his life in the hospital after he was labeled a spirit child. Why? We'll find out. We have business in this package coming up shortly. My name is Aisha Ryan. Do stay for details. Justice administration across the country is set to suffer as the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana, JUSAG, declares a nationwide strike. They are demanding an increase in the salaries of members as they accuse government of neglecting their concerns. JUSAG's president, Samuel Afoteotu, says they will stay away from work until their concerns are addressed. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable has more.
JUSAG has in the last 2 weeks served notice of its plans to embark on the strike over failure of government to adjust salaries. The National Labour Commission intervened, but JUSAG is unimpressed.
The Finance Association, Staff Association, drivers, and all stakeholders. By this declaration of strike, all staff of the service are immediately directed not to report unless and until the President of Ghana complies with Article 149 of the Constitution by approving and paying our salaries with all the arrears from January to date. All staff are also to know the following. The security men and women are to stay at post, but make sure that all entrances to the court and other offices are allowed to prevent entry into the court or any premises of the service. All drivers are directed to hand over their official vehicles in their custody to the transport department. No driver shall drive any office vehicle or any officer or any jet during the period of the strike. No court registrar, I repeat, no court registrar or be compelled to open any registry or court for use during the period of the strike. Regional Executive Board and committee members of JUSAG are to be on the lookout to ensure compliance, same as SANU executives. If any staff of the service receive any treatment from any management member to report to work or perform any official duty during the strike shall decline saying and report the matter to JUSAG. Let no one in government or management unlawfully coerce any staff or intimidate staff during the strike. If any member is inflicted with any injustice in this cause, we shall deem it as all members have been inflicted. Consequently, we shall respond in equal proportion.
This move means all courts will be closed, bringing justice administration to its knees. Only time will tell how soon government will intervene.
The sanitation team of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly stormed Kwame Nkrumah Circle Wednesday morning, driving away street dwellers. The homeless individuals have been using some compartments under the overhead bridge as their place of abode. The head of sanitation team, Florence Kuchi, said the street dwellers are responsible for the filth in the city. Prince Owusu-Ansah has more.
The Kwame Nkrumah interchange, also known as Accra Dubai, is a three-tier interchange that was constructed to ease traffic in the heart of the city. However, homeless individuals have now turned it into a shelter. Out there, homeless persons use rugs, tattered mattresses, and pavement blocks on the walkway to create makeshift beds along the road. To them, they see the place as home. But the Accra Metropolitan Assembly sanitation team is driving these homeless dwellers off the street. Victor Kote is deputy head of waste management at the AMA.
You know, this is not a bedroom. They are not supposed to be here because public property, that public money have been spent to construct, they are destroying them. They are moving the pavement blocks, and you cannot allow, as city authorities, we cannot allow this to continue. So they have to be out of the place. They are not supposed to be here. They are messing up the place. They are destroying public infrastructure, and we cannot allow that.
However, some homeless individuals say they have no place to go. Meanwhile, the head of the AMA sanitation team, Florence Kuchi, indicates the assembly will collaborate with the police to force them out in the coming days.
After this exercise today, you see that we are not here with them. We don't have any police officer with us. So we want to ensure that we take everyone and sleep on it. Then from here, we will tell them nobody should sleep here again. We will give them a warning. From now till tomorrow, we shall be coming back. When we come back and we will meet them, we will come back with the police and we will ensure that the law has taken its own course.
She adds that the AMA will not allow Accra Dubai to be a waste generating center. A report by Prince Owusu-Ansah, read to you.
Municipal Chief Executive for Ayawaso East, Salma Sani Mohammed Adam Kuta, says over 12 kilometers of the inner roads in the municipality have been given out on contracts. According to her, the approval was made this week and contractors are expected to commence work soon. A response follows an ultimatum issued by disgruntled residents of Nima earlier this month over deplorable road network and other developmental challenges in that area. But the MCE at the news conference Wednesday assured residents to remain calm as the challenges are being fixed.
Nima is not that big. We are doing about 11 point something, almost 12 kilometers. The inner roads and the Nima highway. Actually, they gave us 30 days, but I called all of them verbally, and I'm going to organize a meeting with all of them because, as I mentioned, the time they handed over the petition, that the Ministry of Roads and Highway, they've given approval, and then it reached at that time the procurement level. Yesterday, it was awarded to a contractor. The contractor promised he will come very soon after the rainy season, because as we are all aware, they cannot construct a road during rainy season. So it will be fixed very soon, God willing. What I want to do actually before I step down in 2024, we have challenges. We face a lot of challenges. This work we've done so far, it has taken a lot from us. Engaging our people, pleading with them so they can allow us to do this project. What we want to do actually, after all this hard working, we had approval for Agenda 111, that is District Hospital. We've gotten the approval. And then we have a space. So I'm pleading with my people, they should support and help to demolish the place so that we can hand over to Agenda 111. And then inshallah, concerning the road, we are going to see the road very soon fixed in Ayawaso East.
Today is Africa Union Day. School children in particular all over the country are marking the day in their traditional costumes for school today. On the continent, though, there are still issues regarding peace and security largely threatening the sub-region's stability. How has the AU fared and what is being done for a stronger, vibrant and stable African continent? We'll be having that big conversation when Edem Senanu and Emmanuel Cotin joins me. But first, let me share with you a statement that was issued today by the Africa Center for Security and Terrorism on the AU Day. And this is signed by its executive director, Emmanuel Cotin, who will be joining us for this conversation. It says that on the 25th May each year, we celebrate the Great Emancipation Day for Africans because it marks the birth of the Organization of African Union. Well, it says this brought all African states together to fight the evils of colonialism. It came as joyous daybreak and to end the long night of captivity. Ethiopia were determined to champion the development of Africa. They were signing a promissory note to which all Africans were to fall here. In 1963, our beloved Kwame Nkrumah and his acolytes were unanimous when they said Africa must unite. It is critical, however, to recognize the AU has also produced some excellent results in the continent in the face of some drawbacks. It has contributed to conflict resolution, democratic transitions, and promotion of African interests on the worldwide scale. While the AU has made considerable progress in some areas, it's also true that there have been obstacles to overcome and that it has not always lived up to expectation. It is crucial to remember that several factors like scarce resources, intricate regional dynamics, and disparate member state interests affect the efficacy and effectiveness of the AU. The AU has come under fire for its inability to resolve disputes and uphold security and peace across the continent. It was also then believed that the transformation of the organization to an African Union in 2002, which went in tandem with the introduction of the Partnership with Africa's Development, will bring more progress to the continent. On this day, the African Union must rise to the occasion, encouraging science, innovation, research in the continent. The AU must move from defaulting on its own promises and targets, as was in the case in Agenda 2020. Concrete steps and actions must be taken to silence the guns in Africa and not mere rhetoric. I've been joined on the line, thankfully, by Edem Senanu. He's a member of the AU Advisory Board on Corruption. And also on the other line, I've been joined by Executive Director of the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism, Emmanuel Cotin. I'm grateful for your time, gentlemen. Let me start with you, Emmanuel Cotin, because I've just finished reading a statement from your center. First, let's do a reflection and an assessment of the AU over the period in terms of security, on the African continent. How have we fared?
Well, thank you for having me, and very good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners alike. In fact, if you look at the content of our statement this morning, we indeed catalog the successes of the African Union over the period amidst the challenges it faces. The cardinal point is that if you look at the declaration in Addis Ababa, when our own Dr. Nkrumah espoused the idea of the African unity, and you remember his famous statement when he said the independence of Africa unity is dependent on how we can come together as one, practically telling the rest of the African countries that if one African country is independent and the rest are not, or there are challenges elsewhere and others are sitting aloof, is not going to inure to the benefit of the African unity. And that's where we find ourselves. If you look at the continent as we speak, they have done well in the space of security and peace building because you realize that they have peacekeeping efforts dotted across the continent. But there are challenges, and the challenges come as a result of one, like I mentioned, the scarce resources, and other intricacies with country-specific interests. So if we look at what we have today, the continent is dotted with conflict. You can imagine what happened in Ethiopia recently, in Sudan. If you look at Darfur over the period, what happened? If you look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Union have not been able to fashion out ideals or ideas that can bring some of this conflict to a manageable level that we can appreciate. So if you look at Africa as it is, it's all about what we can get, specifically country interests as against Africa as its totality. So Nkrumah, when he said the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up with the total unity of African unity, that lays before us today. And just imagine that African countries are going to the IMF, I'm not talking about Ghana specifically, to borrow money that we cannot pay in our generation. We are getting debt for generation unborn, and yet we are jubilant and celebrating such as successes. So it gives a mixed feeling of how the youth of Africa feels today. It looks as if there's a sense of hopelessness. There's no direction. Our leaders are giving us, and I feel that a day like this is an opportunity for we as Africans to sit, reflect, see how far we have come and what we can do. I think as a continent, what we are not doing is that we don't base most of the things we do on science and research, and the democracy as we see it is merely going to the polls every 4 or 5 years to change leaders, and things remain the same. If you look at the continent today, it's dotted with conflicts and coup d'etats. And the African Union, more or less, hands are tied because they don't have resources as a union to come together to pursue the agenda of some of these conflicts. And more significantly, Asha, if you look at the continent today, we have moved from the colonization phase to the neo-colonization phase, where the West still wants to have its hold on Africa. And unfortunately, we don't have leaders who can stand out and negotiate properly on behalf of the continent. Given our vast resources, we are still in object poverty. We cannot silence the guns. And if you look at the continent as it is, the frequency of guns and conflict is like breakfast on our table every day. But unfortunately, as Africans, we are not even used to breakfast.
The issue about security on the African continent, for instance, if you talk about, because you can't talk about security here without, linking it to international security. We've had a debate or argument over why Africa has been neglected, or the same attention given to other countries has not been given to Africa. I mean, a clear example is the Palestinian and Israel conflict. That has been like forever. There has never been a solution to that. You look at Burkina, you look at Guinea, all these countries are going through a lot. But look at Ukraine and look at the speed with which the international, arena went into its rescue. So you ask yourself, why is Africa not having its voice on the United Nations charter, if you like? Why is it that we cannot speak? Because, I mean, if you look at these 5 those who have the veto, they can say whatever they like, and it looks like they rule the world. Why is African Union not living up to this expectation? What do we need so they can hear our voice?
It's unfortunate Africa doesn't have a common voice. African Union as an entity has not exploited the diplomatic channel to the benefit of Africa. African leaders are not generational in thinking. African leaders are particular about what they can achieve. And if you look at the African society today, it looks as if that has fed into the sight of the African youth. We consume what we don't produce. We have high appetite for luxury goods. And if you look at Africa as it is, the trade balance is a big challenge, because if you look at our export against import, we import more than we export. And it means that Africa must come back to the table once again and look at how it can harness its potential in terms of the natural resources we have, and see how we can start, no matter how small it is, to be able to produce what we eat and trade among ourselves. That is why in the press statement I mentioned about we defaulting on our promises. If you remember the Agenda 2020, most of the African countries defaulted on that, and that was a very beautiful document. Now we have ACTA. We have ACTA with us now. That will enable African countries to trade among ourselves. So that commercial hub, unfortunately, its headquarters is in Ghana. We need to exploit that, trade among ourselves, have a common voice. Until we begin to do the right thing, the international community will not speak Africa right. Until we begin to harness the benefits of democracy, look at justice, look at human rights, look at the need to put infrastructure in place for the total emancipation of the African youth. Until we put systems in place to create jobs for the African youth, then the African youth don't cross this perilous journey on the Mediterranean and die on the sea. They will always continue to treat us as such. If you look at Sudan, when the war started, we released a statement, and we did some comparative analysis, looking at the interest the Western world is focusing on Ukraine, and it looks as if the Sudan crisis, it has not even happened on the surface of the world, and that's so unfortunate. African leaders must begin to look inward, respect themselves, and begin to do the right thing. It is only then the Western world will see value in us and respect us. Otherwise, the Western world will continue to treat Africa as pawns and put mechanisms in place to still have control over our natural resources. And we must also learn as citizens of Africa to sacrifice, because the stage that we are, if we don't sacrifice and sometimes go the extra mile to believe some of our leaders who are generational in thinking and do some self-sacrifices, and we don't always cut corners and looking for cheap way of solving issues by running into the international community to borrow money, we can't borrow out of our present circumstances. We must look inward and find the solutions within.
Mr. Kutin, talking about a united front brings back that conversation about a united Africa. I'll come back and wrap up with you on that. Let me bring in Adam Senanu, who is a member of the advisory board on corruption for the AU. Corruption has been one of the cankers eating deep into African leaders. Reason we say we've retrogressed. Our development hasn't been on that pace that we want. How have we fared in terms of dealing with this particular disease?
Happy AU, happy Africa Day to you and to all our viewers and listeners. The state of progress is not much to write home about. The African Union recognizing the impact, the negative impact of corruption in particular, and seeking to address it, launched the Convention for the Prevention and Combat of Corruption about 20 years ago, 11th July 2003. So in about 2 months, there will be a commemoration of 20 years. In that period, we've had, I think, 48 of the 55 countries ratifying the convention. So that's probably about almost 90%, 87%. But out of that, only about 17 of them have submitted baseline reports. So that gives you about 35% of the 48 or 30% of the 55 member states, which is a very poor level, because first you needed a baseline report, and then you had to submit annual reports of a standard nature for us to see how well we're doing. Over the period, we haven't had many of the countries doing regular reports. Indeed, in terms of country reviews, I think only about 10 countries have done a complete country assessment on the levels of corruption and what is going on. So as a continent, we are not doing very well. We are not doing much. Even though we have ratified almost 90%, most of us do not appear to be making serious strides. Most countries, I know many of the countries, have national anti-corruption authorities who are supposed to be promoting this drive. It looks like there is some kind of influence from government entities, so that these authorities don't have the entire wherewithal nor the space to be able to take all the actions that ought to be taken to bring progress. So there's a lot of room for much more progress and improvement in relation to the detection, prevention, the sanctioning, and the eradication of corruption across the continent.
In Ghana, we've concluded that the politicians themselves are not willing to deal with the menace. That's why we've not made much progress. On the continent generally, what really is accounting for the retrogression?
It's still the same issue of leadership. Because across board, even if we have a framework like we do in terms of the convention, and the responsibility of the board is to give advice and to encourage countries to implement, because in the convention we have all the elements that will allow good progress in this fight against corruption. But you find that it's about the government in place and the leadership, whether they have the political will to run with what the convention says, make sure that institutions are in place, make sure that resources are being provided, making sure that they themselves are accountable. And so we need to look at the political class a lot more closely. We need to look at the political party systems across the continent and the governance systems and see how we can turn things around. Also, clearly, one of the key factors is the value systems. In the countries that appear to be doing very well, Nordic countries like Finland, what have you, they have very strong value systems. So people are growing up with a strong work ethic, strong integrity, honesty, hard work, and we need to try and inculcate that also into the citizenry. Then you will begin to find that everybody is part of the fight and working towards a common goal.
Let me wrap it up with you, Mr. Emmanuel Cotin. A United States of Africa, are we there yet? Because we were told of the eco currency, we're told about the free trade in every African country without visa, getting a visa if you wanted to visit any other African country. All of these were supposed to come in place to make it a united state of Africa. Are we there yet?
If we should even think about it now and looking at the issues confronting Africa as a continent. If you look at science and innovation, we are not there. If you look at research, we are not there. If you look at economics, we are not there because we are not trading among ourselves. If you look at the security front, we are not there. The challenge is Africa has defaulted in many of the beautiful and novel initiatives we have espoused for our emancipation. And I think that we need leaders with generational thinking. We miss the Nyerere, we miss the Jomo Kenyatta, we miss the Nkrumah. That is why the youth of Africa must rise up to the occasion. We cannot leave leadership, we cannot leave politics in the hands of people because we saw it's a dirty game. Africa, what we need now is to be able to devise means to solve our problems from within. Look at the vast natural resources Africa has. And the African Union, member states cannot even finance the activities of the Union. That is a shame on Africa. Given the years of emancipation and what we have gone through to the 21st century. So I think that the solutions are within. We must look within and begin to find out things we can do among ourselves to set the agenda and set the continent on a path where the Western world can respect us. Look at the conflict, especially within West Africa. You see, the colonialists devised a strategy to divide the continent among the French, the Portuguese, and the English speakers. And that is where the problem is. If we can cross that bridge of uniting these three fragments, we can move ahead. Otherwise, whatever we talk about, the seminars, the books, and the good things we talk about, it will be established. And to me, like you mentioned, the United States of Africa is not even yet born.
I'm grateful for your time. Emmanuel Kotin is Executive Director of Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism. Senanu is a member of the Advisory Board on Corruption for the African Union. I'm really grateful for your time this morning, gentlemen. Let's move on to other stories. 1 in every 300 females in Africa is in a forced marriage. That's according to the Global Slavery Index 2023 report by Walk Free, an Australia-based international human rights group working to accelerate the end of all forms of modern slavery. Speaking at the launch of the report in Ghana, President of Challenging Heights, James Kofi Annan, called on African governments to immediately move from intention to effective action in addressing modern slavery.
Over 468 billion of imports are goods such as electronics, garments, palm oil, solar panels, and textiles, leading the pack of products at risk of modern slavery, which are imported into the G20 member countries alone. African job seekers misled by traffickers with false promises are subjected to forced labor abroad, such as in the Gulf states. Children are also exploited in their pursuit of education. For example, under the Confiage Trust system in Togo, children from rural areas are sent to cities to complete their education and live with relatives who may force them into domestic servitude. Nigerian girls seeking employment as domestic helpers to help pay for schooling are also subjected to domestic servitude. In Senegal, the Taliban children in Quranic schools are forced to beg. In Africa, forced marriage particularly impacts women and girls. 1 in every 300 females in the region was in a forced marriage. In the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic, reports of child marriages increased in Sudan, Egypt, and parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. African countries must take urgent steps to pass supply chain due diligence laws to not only protect the rights of workers, but also to protect its international business relations. Ghana must demonstrate commitment and take decisive action to address the plight of the over 20,000 child trafficking victims on Lake Water.
Two other stories. Baby Kelvin was born 5 months ago and after a week developed cerebral palsy with seizures. He was admitted at the Upper West Regional Hospital and the condition was well managed for a week before he was discharged. He was, however, labeled as a spirit child by community members and expected to survive. His parents took him to a native doctor or a medicine man for consultation and treatment at Yiziri in the Nadoli Kalio district. Baby Kelvin was neither breastfed nor given any food item except the herbal drugs given to him for 3 days. Joy News' Upper West Regional correspondent Rafiq Salam, who visited the hospital, reports that baby came back to the facility in a worse condition with sores dotted all over his back and buttocks. Viewers are actually warned that the reports contains horrifying videos.
Baby Kelvin was born 5 months ago and became unwell, resulting in a mother bringing him to the Upper West Regional Hospital, where he was admitted at the pediatric unit of the hospital. According to pediatrician specialist at the Upper West Regional Hospital, Dr. Akanzo Matilda Jekele, baby Kelvin had cerebral palsy with seizures, a medical condition that they have managed at the hospital for a week before he was discharged.
He was born with a condition known as beta asphyxia and developed seizures, what we call seizures. And the mother had been in and out of hospital, various hospitals within the municipality, and eventually came to us. And we managed this child to control the seizures and discharged subsequently. So the mother brought baby back for review. For some reason, we decided to admit and manage the child further and discharged when the seizures were under control. She was adequately counseled, but went home, and pressure from family, they decided to pursue alternative care, which is the herbal treatments.
The medical condition recurred whilst at home, and baby Kelvin's grandfather, who was worried about the situation, decided to consult a native doctor at their home village at Yiziri in the Nadoli district. Sitting by the bedside of baby Kelvin is his mother, Imelda Kele, who is sad and crestfallen about the turn of events.
I was told that I may have made sarcastic comments or looked down on an elderly person, and he's the one pulling the strings on the baby. The other thing is that baby Kelvin may have been a spirit child, and for that matter, may not survive. I was then asked to bring the baby to my home village at Yiziri for the native doctor to exercise the ghosts and spirits on him. We were told that if he is spirited child and takes the medicine, he will die. But if he doesn't, he will be killed and will survive. They gave him the medicine, after which we left.
With beads of tears running down her cheeks, akin to the biblical story of Hagar being left in the barren desert valley by Prophet Abraham, she left baby Kelvin in the care of some unknown women and the native doctor.
I was not happy leaving him with the native doctor, but upon the instruction from my husband, I have to abide by the decision.
5 days later, they were called to Yiziri to take baby Kelvin home. They were not charged a single penny. They, however, met him in worse condition.
He was frail, pale, and weak. His back dotted with sores. His body temperature also rose. We were told he was neither given food nor water, except medicine they gave him.
The baby that they saw when she first came here was a normal baby, a well-to-do baby, being fed.
So when we first attended to this baby was all well, without all these excoriations you see at the back. Baby was doing well after going for the herbal treatment. So this is what we call pressure sores. Because they occur around the bony prominences. When you are left lying in one position for a long time without turning or without getting up, you develop sores on the bony prominences. So that's what has happened to this baby.
Emil Kele, for now, is confused and regretting for her actions.
I am appealing for help in any form to cure my baby. I am told that such medical condition, if not properly handled, may lead to the baby having mental challenges in the future. So I need everybody's help.
We meet the father of baby Kelvin, Paul Kelly, by just a whisker at the hospital. We tried meeting and speaking to him on the issue, but was unsuccessful.
This is not the first time an incident like this has happened. According to the pediatrician specialist, Dr. Matilda, the situation is widespread, and she has this message for the public.
Once you come to assess healthcare, it explained to you that this is a condition that can be managed at this level. It is because we know it can be managed at this level. There is no need for going for alternative treatments where you will come back in a worse form that we cannot do much about. I think especially for children who cannot speak for themselves, I think that parents should consider medical advice before they seek for some of these things.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam. Wow.
Minister for Lands and Natural Resources Samuel Abujinapo has charged managers of the Forestry Commission of Ghana to chase out illegal miners whose activities are threatening the safety of the country's forest reserve. Speaking at the commissioning of a new Forestry Commission office for the Eastern Regional staff, the minister charged service staff in the region to execute their mandate without fear or favor.
Do so without fear or favor. Do so dispassionately, in accordance with the laws of our country and the rules and regulations governing the Forestry Commission. Tiwa Forest, the various forest reserves in the eastern region, particularly those that are under attack from illegal miners, galamseyers, please rid these forest reserves of illegal miners and illegal loggers and other activities which threaten the survival of forest reserves in our country. You have our full support, whether they are high people or low people, whether they are political leaders or not. Your mandate, your work is to make sure that all forest reserves in this country are protected. Let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by reaffirming government's full commitment to the management and staff of the Forestry Commission. We will continue to provide you with all the support and logistics you require. I'm very familiar with some of your challenges. Issues of welfare are very important, and we are going to take a look at that. Issues of training are very important to you, we know, and we're going to take a look at that, as well as issues of empowerment, the various gear that you require, bulletproof vests, weapons, and the rest, to be able to protect all the forest reserves of our country.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, Joseph Alotiareva, says a new office will help the staff properly manage key forest reserves numbering 40 in the region.
In 2022, that is last year, the board of the Forestry Commission directed that we should hasten the process and complete this building. So we consulted the Architectural Engineering Services Limited to redesign the structure, and then engage a contractor, Bonzi's Company Limited. This contractor worked tirelessly to make sure that we completed this facility ahead of time. This facility, Honorable Minister, has 13 offices. One conference room that could seat 60 people, a kitchenette, and a reception. We have water storage facilities here, and we have enough land around the facility to plant more trees. Chairman, this office will manage 7 forest districts, namely Oda, Chibi, Kene, Begro, Raiso, Somanya, and Dokokrum forest. We have 49 forest reserves in this particular region, covering about 1,887 kilometers. This includes the Etiwa Forest Reserve, which has large deposits of bauxite, and then acts as the headwaters for Brim River, River Densu, and then Ayensu. The famous Boti Falls is in the Boti Forest Reserve in this particular region. The Senanu Forest Reserve at Oda hosts the biggest tree in West Africa. Honorable Minister, protection of the forest reserves in this is very important to make sure that we derive full benefits.
We're still live on Joy News Desk. We're coming to you from our studios in Kokomlemle. We're on Fan of our Streets. Of course, the Israeli government has pledged its commitment to invest and support Ghana. We'll bring you all of that in business shortly.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. The Israeli government has pledged its commitment to invest and support Ghana's agricultural sector, especially rice production, to enhance food security and sustainability. To this end, the Israeli Economic and Trade Mission to Ghana is engaging players in the agri value chain to find innovative technologies to develop climate resilience in rice farming and other staples. Speaking to Joy Business at a forum, Ambassador of Israel to Ghana, Shlomo Sufa, said Israel is ready to assist Ghana address challenges facing rice production. Here's more.
After rapid development of climate resilience in rice production, the Israeli Economic and Trade Mission to Ghana, in partnership with the Israeli Export and Ghana Professionals Network, organized a forum that brought together key actors in the agricultural value chain to enhance economic well-being while reducing hard currency expenditure on rice imports. Her Excellency Shamit Sofa is the Israeli ambassador to Ghana.
Increasing food security. And this is why we have our Trade and Economic Mission today, organizing this very important conference on climate resilience in rice production and rice growing, introducing very interesting solutions to these challenges by Israeli companies that present top-of-the-line technological innovations and developments, especially designed for the African climate, African needs, and the needs in Ghana, and thereby contributing to better food security and obtaining the UN Development Sustainability Goals.
With a track record of developing some of the world's most innovative solutions in rice production, head of Israeli Economic and Trade Mission to Ghana, Yaniv Tassel, said Israeli companies are well placed to introduce new technologies to Ghanaian farmers to increase their yields to transform the rice production sector in Ghana.
It's a good platform to allow the Israeli companies to gain more understanding of the ecosystem, of the challenges farmers and business sector are facing with here in Ghana, because not all of the Israeli companies have been operating in Ghana before. And also I think for us as an economic and trade mission to Ghana, it's a good way to engage and create this platform for discussions, and I hope it won't be the last time we convene in this forum. Rice production has been a long-standing issue, and now when prioritized by the government, it's definitely something we want to help tackle.
Meanwhile, some players in the agri-value chain spoke to Joy Business on their preparedness to partner Israeli companies enhance food security in the country.
It's been insightful, it's been thought-provoking. The good thing is Ghana, rice is actually now a staple, and the fact that we intend to also be able to increase production locally, also improve the farmers' productivity. There is therefore the need for us to learn from others so we can then be able to help promote and improve the livelihood of the smallholder farmers.
The National Service Scheme is also involved in large-scale mechanized commercial agriculture. And so this provides us with a wonderful avenue to get to know the various technologies that are being utilized in other countries like Israel, for example, which is the food basket of the Middle East. And so with this, we are hoping to leverage on the use of innovative technology to improve on our production.
The Trade and Economic Mission Forum is aimed at building climate resilience in rice production in Ghana.
Now, the Ghana Association of Banks has described the Bank of Ghana's end of September timeline to provide recapitalization plans as Judicial's Chief Executive Officer John Ewa, speaking to Joy Business, said the directive is in the best interest of the banks to further aid in improving the banking sector. He maintains that this would also position banks in supporting economic growth.
You all read from the governor just around the time we signed the debt exchange documentation that with the banks, he had given us some reliefs on capital, on when we are supposed to build up capital. What the governor is saying is within that period, they want to know when within the period capitalization will be coming in so that they have good visibility of the plans of the banks in terms of capital accumulation and also attracting capital to build the right capital buffers. And I think it's in the spirit of building a base that can support the economic recovery. And our view is that it should be within the relief period, except that if you are a bank and your capital is below the regulatory minimum, it's in your own interest that you move quickly to beef up your capital levels to levels that makes you meet the regulatory requirement and also have the required capital buffers to enhance your business.
And that's it for business. My name is Darryl Kwao. News Desk returns after this break.
And before we part company, there's dead silence at the court complex in Accra as the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana's nationwide strike begins to bite hard. Some unsuspecting clients who visited the court this morning expressed their frustration after meeting an empty court premises. We'll bring you those sounds shortly. Right now, my colleague James Aveji has been monitoring events for us at the court. He joins me live. James, what's the mood like at the court premises?
Right, Aisha. So nothing is happening here, as you may see from the background. On a normal day, this place would have been very busy with cars moving in and out, people moving in and out of the court complex. But as we speak, it's only some security persons who are actually here manning the gate. Earlier when we arrived, we saw a few persons who actually came. Some of them have come to appear in court because their cases were supposed to be heard this morning. And then from what they have been telling us, they were told by the receptionist that the court is not in session today because the workers are not in. For those of them who doubted, actually went into the offices of their lawyers to see them, but they met the absence of their lawyers. They had to call the lawyers to be told that nothing is happening, which means that most of the clients do not know about what is happening. The nationwide strike declared by the Judicial Service Workers, Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana. And then later, two pickups of police personnel arrived here. I counted about 10 to 12 personnel who came and then drove the media team who were at the premises of the court away, that we need to come out of the court premises because the place is not opened to any member of the public today. And so we came out as we speak. They are manning both the outside gate as well as the entrance to the court complex itself. And so the court is, for the lack of a better word, totally shut down today on day one of the JUSAC strike. That's what the mood is here in court. Nothing is happening.
Savaji is a man at the court complex. Definitely we'll bring you more in our subsequent bulletins. That'll be it. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Log on to myjournline.com. There's more of the news and updates of all the developing stories. See you again at 12.